What's going on? I'm back, baby.
Yes, sir.
I am back.
Yes, sir.
Another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Fellas, thanks for taking good care of the podcast without me while I was away.
It got kind of rocky when I
Tyler, it was fantastic. My favorite episode so far.
Tough as bones. Yeah, we'll say that.
Top 3 hosts on the podcast, as Cameron told me.
3.
Top three hosts.
8, 1 or 2. Sorry, those were Tyler's words, not mine. He said it first.
Those were my words.
Oh, fellas, how are we doing today?
Doing good.
Doing great. Doing great.
Talk some more football.
I know. So see, I was listening to one of the podcasts last week, and Tyler, you said, Tuesday's Lucas's least favorite day of the week when you talk fantasy football. And I changed my mindset. It helped change my mindset. Cause I'm like, he's right. Tuesdays suck outside of the fact I get to talk fantasy football at the end of the day, which I love.
Gotta love it.
I love. You can't go wrong.
You can't.
You can't go wrong.
Never.
We'll say we're in the AFC South now. We're going through Texans, Colts, Jaguars, the Tennessee Titans. A lot of players in this division, some of which have fantasy relevance, some of which
Fade.
Yeah, you might be able to pass on in your drafts and not think twice about. But in the first episode of the breakdown this week, we're going to be going through the Texans and the Colts. And why don't we just jump on into it right away? We'll start with maybe probably the most controversial person in this division right now. That is Deshaun Watson. He is extremely difficult to rank right now because we have no news other than he's convinced he's sitting out this year. And he's got piles on piles of lawsuits on him right now. Tyler, you have him at QB8, Cam at QB9. I have him at QB11. And now let me provide this disclaimer before we go 1 second further. Our rankings for Deshaun do not mean you should be drafting him this high right now.
No,
because I think I'm gonna save the question, but I mean, for my ranking, I'm somewhat taking into account that Deshaun might not play this year. It's probably more likely than not going to play this year. Talk to me after August 1st, then I'll have Deshaun Watson in my mid to late 20s probably. But for each of you, how much of Deshaun's looming issues and chances of sitting out the season, how much is that currently impacting your ranking?
I mean, I wouldn't draft him right now. And just because, like, if I'm doing a draft right now, I'm not drafting a guy going, he might not play this year. There's a chance he might never play again. That's the situation that he's in right now. Now, maybe I take a flyer like with my last pick of my draft and say, hey, if he's still out there, might as well try. Because if he is playing, I mean, you got a top 10 guy,
right?
No matter who's on that team. So that would kind of be my thought process if I was drafting right now and I had to choose.
Yeah, I am so torn on Watson. I mean, if he plays, he is a top 10 quarterback.
Easy.
But as it currently stands, with legal issues and with a trade request that is still on the table, there is so much that he would rather worry about than playing for the Houston Texans. So, I mean, ESPN completely dropped him off of the starting quarterbacks that you should take. Like, he literally has 0 projected points right now on ESPN. So, like, there's really no reason to draft him right now. And I don't think there's a reason that he somehow comes out of like the tunnel, like the slow motion, like movie-esque, like, I'm back, baby. He's not doing that this year. There's no way he does that.
And that's what's so tough about ranking him right now, because everything inside me wants to hold on to this, like this fact that there's like a 2% chance he's going to play this year. But the reality is he's probably not going to. So I probably need to just get over myself and probably drop him down to the 20s like before August 1st. But that I've decided August is kind of my point of like, okay, if you haven't made some sort of a commitment to being with your team this season, same goes for like Aaron Rodgers too, right? Just throw out another name. He said he'll have his decision in a couple of weeks, whatever that's supposed to mean. I'm willing to give more leeway there, but since we haven't heard a zip out of Deshaun Watson's camp, I don't know. Like you said, Cameron, I might take him as a late round flyer as like my last pick in my draft, but outside of that, no need to be drafting him with the Dax, Kyler's, Russell Wilson's, Lamar Jackson's of the world.
Which is where he'll be if he plays.
100%.
That's just if he plays.
Right. Well, let's move on to some of the players who will actually be playing in the Texans offense this season. Start with Brandon Cooks. Finished with a strong 2020 campaign once he got traded to the Houston Texans. Finished as wide receiver 19 last season. We all have him hovering right around the wide receiver 30-ish range. Tyler has him at 29, Cam at 27, I am at 30. Cam, let's just keep it simple. What are your thoughts on Brandon Cooks' fantasy outlook this season?
I think he is going to be pretty good. Or no, I shouldn't say that. He will get volume. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
I won't say it's going to be great volume. I won't say it's going to be bad. It's just he's going to get volume if Deshaun's not playing. If Deshaun is playing, he'll have a decent year. I mean, he's had, 5 out of his first 7 seasons, he's had 1,000 yards. So, I mean, he can do it. It's just if he has Tyrod Taylor, like Tyrod Taylor's never put together a great season as a quarterback. Like with Tyrod Taylor's a guy that like I'm always like, yeah, Tyrod, but it's like, yeah, I wouldn't want Tyrod starting for my team. So he'll get volume, he'll get catches. It's just who knows? I mean, he could average like 4 yards a catch. That just could just be how bad that offense is. And touchdowns are gonna be really hard to come by in that offense. So he might be a guy you take later, but his ceiling is definitely capped.
Absolutely. Any conclusive thoughts on that, Tyler?
If I can compare him to, or like, if I could compare his projection to a receiver from last year, it would be Deebo Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't think Cooks will have the injury problems that Deebo had last year. But Deebo, I mean, the whole 49ers team last year just started off on the worst foot possible, right? Their players are dropping like flies. Jimmy gets hurt again, so that offense is just in shambles. Kittle's hurt again, so like they have to literally build from the ground up. And Deebo was impacted by that, where he was not worth a play at all the first like 5 or 6 weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, he started coming back around when that offense actually kind of found a groove.
Yeah,
I think that's what's going to happen with Cooks this year, is that offense and everything surrounding Houston right now. Everyone's going to start slow. And I think eventually they're going to find some sort of groove.
Doesn't mean they're going to win games, but they'll find a groove.
I mean, Cooks last year, him and Will Fuller, they got most of their points from medium and long range passes and stuff. I think Cooks then is now going to be used as the short range guy, because I don't think Tyrod's got a rocket of an arm, if I'm honest. So I think, like I said, he'll have a Deebo type Samuel year, or Deebo Samuel type year.
Deebo type Samuel.
Can't talk. Where it's going to start out slow. It's going to be really small portions, and eventually he may get back into flex conversation, but that's rough. It's
breaking
rough.
Into wide receiver 2 range at the very best.
Very best.
Yeah.
Very best.
Very best.
Yeah, I think your Brandon Cooks, he'll be I don't even know if I want to say a fine flex play, but in mock drafts that I've been doing, I've taken him as my flex wide receiver on a few occasions, and I've had to retrace sense from remembering that Tyrod Taylor is the quarterback and not somebody. I mean, Tyrod Taylor is a very serviceable backup quarterback in the NFL, but he's like you said, Cameron, he's not the guy I'd want at the helm. I want Deshaun Watson instead, but alas, one of the guys who would likely be more useful for fantasy if Deshaun Watson was at quarterback. Definitely draft worthy still, but I don't think we can feel super great about having him on your team. For the first half of the season. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, I think because he's still going in the range of a flex player, if you take him, you best get another receiver right after that to play, to put in his spot, because I think eventually Cooks, like I said, can't find a flex spot, and he'll have some value that you may be able to dump off for something else, but you cannot bank on him as your steady flex for the whole year.
For sure.
Yeah. Let's move on to another person who probably would be better with Deshaun Watson in the lineup. That whole team would be. I don't know why I'm starting with that.
that
That whole
whole-
team would
that
be
whole
better with
team.
Deshaun Watson. David Johnson's the player I'm referring to, though. Finished out 2020 with a strong burst. He ended the season as running back 21. We all have him in the 25 range running backs right now. Tyler's at 25, Cam, you're at 23. I'm at 24. Tyler, what's your level of confidence that David Johnson can repeat a top 25 season this year without Deshaun Watson at quarterback?
I think there's a chance that he does. The toughest thing for me is defenses are going to force Tyrod Taylor to throw the ball, right? So the box is going to be stacked, and maybe the offense will incorporate some, option plays for Tyrod to either hand it off or to take it himself.
Mhm.
I think solely off of that, Johnson can finish top 25, or the defenses still have to respect Tyrod Taylor because he is still a fairly decent runner. So you can't just let Tyrod just do his thing. So you got to give him some sort of respect. So I think Johnson will feed off of whatever the defense will give him.
Yeah.
That puts him probably like smack dab right at 25.
Uh-huh.
There's really no chance he cracks 20 in my book.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that maybe I think about as my running back 3, but that's about it. He's just in like a 25 finish. Like last year, running backs around that running back 25 were Chase Edmonds, James Conner. I mean, Giovanni Bernard. Like they weren't great running backs around that 25.
That's not a great list of names to be a part
even
of.
if he is running back 25, you're not like, whoo, he's the guy that I'm going to just put in my flex and leave. That's not who it'll be. So.
Yeah. I think he's someone that you will see a lot of people drop right at the beginning of the year. Then he becomes kind of a streaming option, and then people will just kind of hold on to him because if the matchup is right, I mean, because there are some really bad run defenses in the NFL.
Yeah.
I can't name them off the top of my head, but every year
one of them's in their division,
Jacksonville.
I mean, every single year. I mean, thankful for ESPN for putting up for your offensive player, they put up the team they're playing, and then right in the parentheses, they'll say like the defensive rank.
Yeah.
Look for like the 30th, 29th teams that Houston will play.
Yes.
I bet there will be 1 or 2 of those games.
Yeah.
You could probably get away with the start then just because you're like, the matchup is set.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't produce, then you're just like, okay, then you can go.
The only thing with David Johnson, he'll probably be in the receiving game just because that's who he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a receiving back and they have no other options. So maybe he'll be about 10 points a game at minimum. I could see him being like 10 to 13 points every week.
Like a Melvin Gordon of last year.
And then maybe throwing up a 20. So if you have to plug him in because he got hurt, like you're not going to get 0 out of him, I don't think, any week. But you're not going to be like, oh, he just popped up for 25 for me.
He is not the Arizona Cardinals David Johnson of Once Upon a Time.
I miss that.
That David Johnson. That David Johnson killed me in those fantasy leagues. Oh, man. But yeah, no, the only thing I think I have to say after that is Tyrod. I mean, if we saw I can't really take a one game sample size with Tyrod Taylor last year, but with Austin Eckler, pass catching running back, I think Eckler had like 1 reception that first game of the season, and everyone's going bonkers. Like, oh man, he's not going to pass the ball. And Tyrod Taylor is not a gunslinger. He also doesn't just dump it off either. So I mean, he's not great at the helm. I think I took David Johnson in our mock draft because I liked his receiving upside, and then again I had to remind myself, Tyrod Taylor is his quarterback. That's not that good. But depends how much you want to take into consideration Philip Lindsay, and I mean they have Rex Burkhead and Mark Ingram in town too, and
one of them's gonna get
cut, but it ain't gonna be David Johnson, it ain't gonna be Philip Lindsay.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 guys that you'll probably have to think about, but I mean David Johnson still should be the guy, and I agree. I think he'll be like smack dab at 25, won't be much higher, but he probably won't go lower than like 30 either.
Right.
I mean, Lindsay's a good football player. Let's not get it wrong. Like he's had multiple 1,000-yard rushes, but he's about the same quality of rusher as David Johnson, whether you want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
And David Johnson's just a better pass catcher.
Yeah.
So they're going to use David Johnson more unless he comes in the year and the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
So that would be the only reason you take Philip Lindsay is if you're like, you know what, this is the year David Johnson's wheels fall off. and so Phil Lindsay's going to have to take over and just going to have to get a lot of carries.
Yeah.
But this team's going to be behind a lot, so
Yeah.
They have to throw the ball.
they have to throw the ball.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yeah. So all in all, the Texans aren't great fantasy options right now.
They're really
They're serviceable options,
Yeah.
but they're not guys you walk out of your draft with saying like, man, look at this steal I got.
Yeah.
I know I put Brandon Cooks as an underrated player on our Instagram, the FF fellas, by the way, but
Yeah.
I'm back with the promos, baby.
Yeah.
Yes, we missed that dearly last week.
Also, quick tidbit. Vegas has the over-under for Texans wins at 4. So go bet that
Oh.
under like crazy if you want to make some good money. Like I'm not a
down.
sports bettor, but I would go bet that under like no tomorrow because there's no way that team reaches 4 wins.
I mean, even the Jaguars, right? Who everyone's like, well, they won't be good. Jacksonville will still blow them out of the
Yes.
water. It won't even. Those games will be hard to watch.
Yeah.
But Jacksonville will still beat them. So
Yes.
they will go 0-6 in division. That's already 6 of what your 18,
17 games.
17 games.
18
now.
weeks, 17 games. this
That's
season.
11 games, and then I mean you have go bet the freaking under. That's what I'm doing after this. I'm gonna go put some money down on the under.
Please gamble responsibly. That's the only thing I'm going to say to wrap
Responsibly.
up that.
I don't think we can even do it in Minnesota.
No, I don't think we can.
No.
So get a plane ticket
Fly yourself to a long weekend in Vegas.
Yep.
and then bet enough to cover the plane ticket and a plane ticket back.
Yes. Leave yourself some, and then responsible gambling.
Let's we're getting
We need-
sidetracked here.
Yeah, we are.
I'm gonna bring us back here. Before we move on, any last Texans players that we even want to mention? We saw Kiki Cutie get a little bit of action at the end of last
He
season.
was literally my favorite pick of all year.
I love Kiki
For 2
Cutie.
weeks.
For 2 weeks.
I love
He
him.
was great. He was my flex for 2 weeks straight. And I won games because of Kiki Kuti. So he won't do anything this year. Sorry. He won't.
Nick
But
Collins, rookie
Nico
wide receiver,
yeah,
Nico
Nico
Collins, excuse me.
Collins, he's the biggest body for Houston on the outside. So
He's got a path to targets.
Yes. I mean, Randall Cobb, Chris Conley, Andre Roberts, and who else am I forgetting? Oh, Kiki. Yeah, he has every opportunity to kind of make it onto first team, but
So maybe a dynasty pick, but that's about it.
a late round
Late-
dynasty.
I've seen him go late round of dynasty drafts, and I
That's
haven't
about
been enticed to pick him.
That's about it.
Jonah Atkins, can I do the thing where I like hope and pray that he becomes a thing, just like I did with Chris Herndon?
Well, it happens every year.
I'm not gonna do it
Yeah,
though
don't
because
do
I'm
it.
no dummy.
Don't do
But
It happens every year. You'll find somebody who thinks it's I don't want to say trendy, but they think it's a smart move to pick up the Texans tight end after whichever tight end it was that would get like 2 touchdowns 1 week.
yeah, it'd be like Darren Fells would score twice.
Right. Everyone's like, oh, he's going to be the hottest pick of the week. What happens next week?
Yeah, he doesn't catch a pass for 4
Yeah.
weeks. in a
2
row.
receptions for 5 yards.
And you're just like, don't take a tight end.
On the 32nd best team in the league.
Yeah. Just do yourself a favor and just look elsewhere.
Well, that wraps out the Texans. And before we move on, you can tell I'm rusty. I've taken a week off. I skipped arguably the most important part of our podcast.
The hottest segment on the podcast.
Literally the hottest segment on the podcast. I skipped right over it. So this is either going to wrap out the Texans or it's going to give us a juicy transition right into the Colts.
Oh,
Hot take, Ty. What is the hot take of the week?
hot take of the Houston Texans.
We're wrapping out the Texans with a hot take.
Yeah, the Colts are just also another tough team to make a hot take about. But my hot take about the Texans is that Philip Lindsay will actually finish above David Johnson in scoring.
Ooh.
That can be a pretty simple take because if David Johnson's hurt for the season,
Yeah.
then obviously Lindsay finishes above. But
Assuming health.
assuming
health.
yeah, we're gonna take health out of the potential
Same points per
finishing.
game.
Yeah, we'll say that point. Yeah, Lindsay will finish with a higher average points per game than David Johnson this year. That's my hot take.
I like it. I like it.
It's respectable but they could be running back 29 and running back 30.
Like
So-
with Amari and CD. That's also very true.
They might not be. He might finish above, but that doesn't mean Philip Lindsay's gonna be great.
Right. Well, let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts. And man, they have some exciting young talent on this team. And we'll start with that second-year running back who, man, really went on a tear at the end of last season. Jonathan Taylor finished 2020 as running back 6. This was a guy who was going in like the 4th, 5th, 6th round last season.
And then people are dumping him right away at
Yeah.
the end of the season.
I told all my friends, you're dumb for drafting him. I'm the dummy. Okay. I guess I'm the dummy. I also didn't know Marlon Mack was going to, just shred his Achilles week 1, but alas, here we are. Tyler, you have him at running back 8. Cam, running back 8. I got him at running back 9, all in the same range, respectfully. Again, incredible 6 weeks of the season last year to end out the year. Pretty dicey middle 6 weeks where the Colts were just kind of like, oh, do we even like Jonathan Taylor? And they're like, oh, wait, we like Jonathan Taylor. Yeah. Currently, his ADP is running back 7. He's a pretty trendy first-round bust pick right now. So if any of those first-round running backs are going to be a bust, Jonathan Taylor is the pretty trendy pick for that right now. So, Cameron, my question for you is Jonathan Taylor being drafted at his ceiling right now?
So like you were saying, I'm going to just start with stats from last year. Jonathan Taylor, 232 rushes, 1,169 yards, and 11 touchdowns rushing.
Oh.
And he also had 39 targets, 36 receptions, 299 yards receiving, and a touchdown. So, I mean, he put up crazy stats. He averaged 25 points over those last 6 games you're talking about. So just insane. But I do kind of think he's being drafted closer to his ceiling. I don't think he's at his ceiling. He's a guy that can really for anybody to average 25 points a game for 6 games, like that's great
impressive.
chunk. Like
that's impressive.
That's elite.
So I mean, I don't doubt that he can average that. It's just on this team with Philip Rivers last year, Rivers was trying to hold on to the ball. Like he was trying not to turn over the ball. That was his game plan. And so that gave Jonathan Taylor a lot more just touches in general. And like the game plan centered around him. So if that happens again this year, he can definitely be better. But at the same time, I'm not taking him above my top 7 of who do I got? I got McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Henry, Saquon, Zeke, and Chubb.
Right.
Yeah. Those 7 for me are set ahead of him.
Yeah.
And I think he can be better. I think he's at his ceiling. That's kind of where I'm seeing him at being taken. So whenever I'm mock drafting and stuff, I'm usually skipping over Jonathan Taylor just because he is so high. And the only reason of that is because kind of transitioning toward that next running back is Nahim Heinz. Yeah. Because Heinz last year had 76 catches, 482 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So that's really cutting into receiving. So if Taylor comes in and takes 20 of those receptions, 100%, I think he'd be top 3 running back.
Oh,
yeah. Because
he could be the next Kamara-esque running back that we see.
100%. 100%. I mean, he runs like Nick Chubb, but he's much more involved in the passing game.
Yeah.
So he could definitely take off higher. It's just for me, it's tough to see him this season right now with the team that's in front of him pushing higher.
Yeah. Yeah, I said it. We on our TikTok fantasy football fellas. You can follow us there.
Another plug.
Man,
Let's go.
I'm on fire today.
Let's go.
We posted a video on there talking about how if you draft Jonathan Taylor appropriately, he's not going to be a bust because you're not going to pay as high of a price for him for what his potential floor could be.
Because his floor is still super high. Don't get me wrong. His floor is like running back 13 or something.
Right.
He's gonna be so good.
He's still a top 15 running back this season, no question.
No matter what happens.
But if you draft him right in the middle of his floor and ceiling, let's be modest and say his ceiling is running back 5.
Yes.
And let's say his floor is running back 15. If you draft him at running back 9 or 10, you got good value for Jonathan Taylor then, I think. I think you got fair value for him. So he's not a guy that I don't think he should. I think you should still take guys like Devontae Adams ahead of him.
Yes.
Well, you mentioned Nick Chubb. I still think those top 6, 7, 8 guys should still be going ahead of Jonathan Taylor. I'm not saying I don't like Jonathan Taylor. If you pick him up at the tail end of your first round, that's a win. That's a win for you, 100%. But if you're in those middle 5, 6, 7 picks, I even 8, I don't know if Jonathan Taylor's your guy, truthfully.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen mock drafts where it goes. I mean, because Nick Chubb, for whatever reason, on ESPN is like
Criminally underrated.
He's at like 14 in the rankings right now. So that's like beginning of round 2. He's obviously a first round pick, according to all of us. But in most mock drafts, Devontae and Tyreek are going in front of Jonathan Taylor, and I would agree with it. But if you are taking Adams or Tyreek, you best get a running back then round 2 that has similar volume to what Taylor will get.
Yeah,
because
Joe Mixon. There's a plug.
I'll stop. No, I'm thinking like I want to say
Austin Eckler,
Antonio Gibson, maybe.
Yeah.
Joe Mixon's in that range too, so it's not as crazy as you just made it sound off of your tongue.
You could maybe even say Cam Akers too.
Maybe,
but he's more. You would rather take guys that have the, I think Akers is a like solid running back 2, and that's where he's gonna stick this year. But like Eckler, Gibson, maybe even Mixon can get into running back 1 territory, and I think that's where. Like that's what I mean by trying to get volume round 2.
Yep.
You got to get one of those guys that can.
You want a guy who's proven it and is going to repeat this year.
Yes, like you need someone to take that Taylor spot if you were going to pass Taylor up for a wide receiver.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100% makes sense. I think the only guy I have ahead of Jonathan Taylor, because you both have him at 8 and I have him at 9. I think the only guy I have at 8 is Aaron Jones,
which
and that
I need to maybe do that same switch. And I'm thinking,
and I'm on the edge of it too. I'll admit.
Yeah,
so.
and it's like he's been so good. Every time people want to try and push him closer to that 10 range, he finishes so much closer to the 5 range, running back 5 range. So, and that's personal preference, right? So, I mean, really, if you want to you can take Jones before Taylor. I think that's fine. You could probably take Devontae, Tyreek, and even Stephon Diggs before Jonathan Taylor, maybe.
You can make a case for Diggs.
You can make a case for Diggs. I think you can make a case for any of those guys. But Tyler, I like how you said it too. If you pass on Jonathan Taylor and he goes at the tail end of your first round before he comes back to you, you better make sure to grab a high volume guy. Then Austin Eckler is probably a really good pick to really target that in your second round. So we all like Jonathan Taylor. I feel like we've said a lot of negative things about Jonathan Taylor, but we all like Jonathan Taylor to be a top 10 running back this year. And he's going to be a borderline elite addition for your fantasy team.
Yeah, he's just not he's not someone we're targeting, but if he falls to us in a spot that we're comfortable taking him, we'll take him.
Happily. Let's talk about the newest member of the Indianapolis Colts, Carson Wentz, acquired in trade from the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason, reunited with Frank Reich in that offense. Carson Wentz, finished as quarterback 22 last season, but even though he had an abysmal end to his season, here's a number I just had to throw out here because I was fascinated by this, and I had Carson Wentz for about 4 weeks last season, then flipped him for a pretty penny. Carson Wentz, weeks 1 through 7, quarterback 7.
Keep sleeping on Wentz, people. I'll snatch him for you.
Granted, that was somewhat inflated with rushing touchdowns, but still, he was getting it done.
Yeah,
he was getting weeks 4 through 7 were looking really pretty on paper. People were thinking it was Carson Wentz is back, baby. But then
he was great for fantasy, just not great for the Eagles.
And bingo. Anyways, where we have him ranked for this season, Ty and Cam, you have him both at quarterback 18. I have a quarterback 20. Tyler, 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
Do you think we can see a similar ceiling for Carson Wentz this year, that borderline top 10, even pecking inside the top 10 range? And then what's your more realistic projection for Carson Wentz?
Yeah, so I don't think this year will be the year that he begins to kind of knock on the door of top 10. I think the year after that he will. More so because I think with whatever happened in Philadelphia, that is such a bigger change than people want to admit going to Indy, right? He's walking into a more comfortable situation. So at least in my opinion, there's really no pressure on him to be the guy like he was in Philly, right? So to kind of get back into that mindset, that's going to take a year. And especially in can I say Indy's a run first offense? Can I?
You can say they're a bad offense.
He's talking about the wide receivers. He's talking about the wide receivers.
They got a great O-line, but that offense just atrocious.
I'll say balanced.
Balance. That's a good word. That's a good word.
Wentz was always put in the spot to bring the team back to be the main guy for Philly. He doesn't have to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that takes a year. Like I said again, it'll take him a year to kind of get into that role. I think he is definitely worth taking as your quarterback too, in case he does kind of pick up where he left off with Reich, where he's knocking on QB1 status. He's worth taking as your second quarterback. But I wouldn't put the expectation on him as you have had in other seasons where quarterback 7, rushing touchdowns, slinging the ball across the field. That I don't think that's this year. That's to come, but just not this year.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Cameron, on that?
Yeah. I mean, we know his floor was last year, 16 touchdowns, 15 interceptions in 12 games. Like that's his floor. But the year before, he still had 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns. So I mean, he's not like he hasn't done it in a long time. Like he can do it. But like you're saying, they got an amazing defense who was great on turnover differential, and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
So you're going to run the ball and play great defense. And whatever Carson Wentz does is just an extra. So
yeah,
that's kind of where he's,
and I think
where he'll be at.
I agree
100% with what you're saying.
Yeah. I think back to when Kirk Cousins came to Minnesota, it took Kirk a year to kind of get familiar with everything.
Mm-hmm. Then
after that, he kind of grew a little bit more, but then you really got to see Kirk do his thing
Last year.
It takes a year to transition with new offense and new personnel around you. But I think the thing, Cousins was leaving an offensive line that he had in Washington, but he was gaining weapons in Minnesota.
Yeah.
You can make a similar argument for Wentz going to Indy. He's leaving a aging and inconsistent offensive line for one of the best offensive lines.
Yeah.
Maybe you can make an argument that he's got better personnel than Philly, but
wide receivers about the same. Better running back.
Much
better running back than the Philly.
Let it be known. Miles Sanders.
Yeah. So I compare it to Kirk and his first year. It was up and down.
Yeah.
Like there were games where Kirk, you thought that he was figuring it out, but then the following week he's back where he was. That's going to be Wentz this year.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, Wentz is still on the right side of 30. 30 is always kind of the marker for any football player in my mind. Running backs is closer to 28, but Wentz is on the right side of 30. So I think he's still got a lot of football left in him. And like you said, he was doing great things literally less than 2 seasons ago. Yeah. So I still think, a strong campaign for Wentz is in the works, but I don't come out of him as your only QB. Yeah, from your drafts.
100%.
Yeah.
Yikes. Let's go on to the guys who will be passing the football, catching the football from Carson Wentz. And we'll just start with probably the most prominent name amongst the wide receiver group, only because he's been the one who's been there the longest, and that's T.Y. Hilton. He's currently going, he's going as wide receiver 53 right now. This is probably going to be an easy question. Either of you think he returns to the clear number one option in that offense this year? Yes or no? Since we're clipping away on time here.
Maybe just because there's nobody else that's like stepped up last year. Yeah. But I mean, he's not going to return to the old T.Y. Hilton.
Top 20 T.Y. Hilton.
No. I mean, I have a stat. He averaged under 13 points per game 3 out of the last 4 seasons. 3 out of the last 4 seasons. Ugh. So he hasn't been the same TY for a while. So
yeah, I think TY finally has quarterback that can get him the ball because he's a deep threat.
Since Luck, yeah.
Yeah.
It's his first guy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's when he broke out, or he came onto the scene at least with Luck.
Yeah.
Rivers was never going to give him the ball downfield.
Rivers is checked down 24/7, 365.
So if anyone's going to do it, it's Wentz is going to run back. But
I mean, I go back to the game with Wentz when he was at Philly playing against Seattle. He's literally getting tackled and he throws it downfield like 50, 60 yards for a first down. Like he's getting tackled and he's still managing. Right. Like Wentz will get him the ball downfield. So I think TY can find flex.
maybe
Production, maybe
as long as he's playing Houston.
I'll say that. I'll say this. I think TY has a better chance of flex production than Brandon Cooks does this year.
Ooh.
That should have been my hot take.
That's a new hot take.
That's the hot take I'm going with. That's the one I'm going with.
We switched it up.
That was hot. Holy cow.
That's legal.
Wow.
My man. That's legal.
That's my hot take. I'm changing it, and that is final.
That could be your hot take, but it's not my hot take.
That's what, like 3 in a row I've wrote with you on for hot takes. I love it. I love it. I love it.
CeeDee Lamb one. Yeah. Well, I digress.
I was with you on CD. I was with you then too.
Yes, sir.
Some skepticism on TY obviously comes from a lot of young, arguably high upside wide receivers in this offense. And I think that's what they are high upside, extremely low floor wide receiver options for this team. And we could probably spend half of this episode trying to talk each other into why Michael Pittman is going to be the breakout option. Paris Campbell, Zach Pascal. We could probably spend, like I said, half the episode doing that. But what I'm going to do, we're each going to take one of them. I'm going to ask you which out of the 3 you're taking, which out of the 3 you think has the best chance to step forward and break out. And you get 30 seconds to explain yourself.
Alrighty.
And we'll just move on.
Okay.
Just because we're running short on time and we got to make sure we get to the people.
Yeah.
The people's questions got to be answered.
The listeners, the devoted listeners.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes,
Cameron, let's start with you. Give me your Colts wide receiver, not named T.Y. Hilton. You're keeping tabs on going into the season.
Going Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell has played 9 games, had 5 injuries, and caught 24 passes. So we have no idea what Paris Campbell can do. But his senior year at Ohio,
that was just like that was what a stat line. Half of it was injuries, but
does my 30 seconds start now, or does that cut into
no, starts now.
So his senior year at Ohio State, Paris Campbell had 90 catches, 1,063 yards, and 12 touchdowns in like 13 games or whatever they play. So he can put up production. And all they've ever said since they've gotten him is we want to make him a big part of our offense. And so maybe this is the year that they finally do. I'm not really high on any of them, but he's going the latest in the draft besides Pascal. He's going like the 14th round. So as a guy in the 14th round who put up great numbers in college, who they want to get involved, that is why I would take Paris Campbell.
Good argument.
Thank you.
Me?
Ty, how do you, man?
I'm up.
Ties up.
I'm gonna change my answer a bit. Instead of saying someone that I will be looking for or targeting or watching, it's someone that I will not be watching.
Oh.
That's Zach Pascal. Pascal only produced, or he only was relevant, and I use that lightly because Paris Campbell was out, and Pascal was the slot guy. So you have TY downfield. You have Pascal in the short, and you have Pittman just kind of doing God knows what because his stats were not super.
Pittman was
great.
all over the place.
Yeah,
he was a roller coaster.
I think Pascal, he now is back in that wide receiver 4 spot before Paris got hurt. Maybe he is worth a look later on in the season if one of those 3 falls down because of injury or whatnot, but. Like I said, he's not someone I'm looking at. And I mean, even with the playing time that he had last year, he didn't really do much with it. So,
when you're wide receiver 4 in a bad wide receiver room, that's not usually good for fantasy.
Exactly. See, I should have just said that, but I just had to elaborate a little bit more.
That's okay. I was thinking on the same lines.
Yeah. So that's Zach Pascal for all you folks.
All you folks.
That leaves Michael Pittman for me, and that's okay. That's who I was going to take anyways. I have Michael Pittman ranked the highest out of all the Colts wide receivers. Actually, I'm ahead of T.Y. Hilton. I didn't put it down what I actually have him ranked as. That was a mistake on my end. You both have rankings right in front of you, though, so you can triple check for me. It's a race.
You keep talking.
Yeah, Michael Pittman was actually a candidate I was looking for. You know, when it's like mid-season, as you're looking to kind of bump up your depth a little bit and upgrade your flex spot. Tyler, yes, you have the answer of where I have Michael Pittman ranked.
Michael Pittman is ranked wide receiver 50 right now. Yeah, you have him at 50.
You got him at 50.
Yep. And
Perfect.
TY is at 64.
Oh, I need to move TY up in my rankings. Clearly, I haven't looked south of 40 in some time.
And Zach Pascal is at 193.
Sounds about right.
I took Ty's advice there.
Sounds about right.
Anyways, Michael Pittman. He again, the time of the year last season where I typically start to look for an upgrade at wide receiver 3, an upgrade at flex spot, and Michael Pittman had just broken out, right? And I'm like, this could be the guy. I know I'm gonna have to buy a little bit high on him, but hey, I also got guys like Cole Beasley sitting on my bench who are he has no business being this consistent. Wheels got to fall off at some point. Thank goodness I kept Cole Beasley because, Michael Pittman, like you said, Tyler, was much more of a roller coaster ride last season. But to the eye test last season, he looked like the best wide receiver on that team. T.Y. Hilton, he's old. He doesn't have the burst anymore. He doesn't have the zip. Michael Pittman's still young. He's got the length to be that. I don't want to say a big body option. He's still pretty slender, but he's got the quickness. He's got the route running. He was third behind Zach Pascal in fantasy scoring, but Michael Pittman also missed 3 games last season. If he played those 3 games, he probably would have finished ahead of Zach Pascal. So whether you want to count him as the number 2 option in that offense last season, I think he's a good candidate to take a step forward this year. I'm not going to say he's going to be a breakout candidate because, I agree with everything that's been said about Carson Wentz kind of needing a year to get acclimated. But alas, I don't know. Michael Pittman's the one I'm keeping an eye on. I'm not super stoked to draft him, but if you're looking for that wide receiver 5 and some of the options on there kind of scratching their head at they're in the Jets offense as the 3rd wide receiver, take Michael Pittman there. Yeah. It's going to be worth it. And he's going to be one of those guys you're probably going to end up dropping for whatever undrafted running back pops off the first 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah. Philip Lindsay. Kidding.
Anyways, Michael Pittman, low risk option who I think has high upside to potentially, get into that wide receiver 3 conversation. I don't know if he's necessarily flex conversation, but
Dynasty is definitely worth it.
Dynasty, he's definitely worth a draft pick, definitely worth a look.
All right.
Well, that wraps out the Colts with what we have left of this episode. Let's go through the people's questions.
Mailbag.
We got a mailbag. First question. Oh man, dude. Oh, McLovin messaged us again.
Oh yes,
McLovin's all.
Yes.
I love McLovin.
Yes. Let's
Actually, it
go.
might be his brother, McLovin's bro.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's his brother.
Yeah.
Irrelevant. McLovin's bro asked if you guys could play at an elite level at one position besides quarterback in the NFL. What position would it be? We're gonna do this like the Colts. You get your position. You get 30 seconds to explain yourself.
I've been thinking about this all week. If I can play at an elite level, I am playing strong safety, and I'm going to be like Cam Chancellor and just knock people's heads off. I just want to come down on a guy with his head down, try to catch a pass, and just blow someone up. If I could play at an elite level, that is what I would do. I play like Sean Taylor.
Oh, okay.
That's how I would play. I would just be trying to crush people all the time.
Troy Polamalu.
Actually, I would play like
We've been saying it wrong our whole life.
Polamalu.
I would play like Andrew Sandejo, but I'd be good.
He wouldn't play like recess football. Tyler.
You know the funniest thing about your answer, Cam, is I said safety as well.
No, all 3 of us did. All 3 of us did.
No, but here's I am more so the who would be a good example? the most recent one, I guess, that comes to mind, Anthony Harris,
Uh-huh.
your cover one safety that will just kind of watch everything happen in front of
Just
them.
going for picks. Ball hawking.
Well, so here's the thing.
Not Sadeo. Sadeo does that. He gets it wrong 95% of the time.
As a former catcher, all I'm used to is seeing everything around me and directing everything around me, right? I feel like from the safety spot, maybe from a linebacker, but I'm not a big brute like a linebacker. So safety, because I can watch and I can kind of bait quarterbacks. I would love to bait a quarterback into a bad throw and then take it to the house. So
Ed Reed.
Ed Reed, that's a good one.
that made me so happy. Because I thought Ed Reed was more of the hitter, but I'm like, more that I think about it. Yeah, he was.
His instincts are unreal.
Yeah.
All right, Lucas.
Yeah, I did safety too. Moving on. No.
That
No.
was a combo of the two. I would actually do a combo. That would be you. You would be both the hard hitter and the ball hawk.
Yeah. Yep. The skinniest dude here. Means nothing. But anyways, no. And literally, so my explanation for why I wanted to play safety too, I was ready to lay into Andrew Sadeo in this segment. I was ready for it. To say I'd play strong safety, except I'd have far better instincts than Andrew Sadeo. Look, he's in the NFL. I'm not. Clearly, he's a talented football player. But, man, I'm sorry, man. It was painful to watch sometimes. There you go. We'd all choose to play safety, and we did not discuss this before we started this segment at all. So, all right. Last mailbag question to wrap up the podcast. It comes from Riley Ewan. Excuse me if I mispronounced your last name there, Riley. Y-U-E-N is the last name. Thoughts on Deebo Samuel this year? We've hyped him up a little bit here and there. Tyler, you've kind of been the one amping up Deebo more than the rest of us. And
I defer all my time for this answer to Tyler.
all right, perfect. Tyler, you get a full minute to talk about Deebo.
I will keep this as short as possible. I'm gonna go off of my notes because I can't just we're going word for word off of this. So right now, Deebo is my wide receiver 37 and Ayuk is my wide receiver 34. I give Ayuk the edge because he has a higher ceiling and he isn't as injury prone as Deebo is.
Yep.
Ayuk did miss games, but not as much as Deebo did. Last year, Deebo Samuel played in 7 games. He missed all of September. He missed about a month from week 8 to 11. And luckily, week 11 was the bye week. Played 2 weeks. Then he got injured again and missed the rest of the season. Say 7 games. He finished with 33 catches, 43 targets, a little shy of 400 yards and 1 touchdown. Not super great. And especially because the first 4 weeks that he was active, 4 through 7, he was wide receiver 42, averaging just 4 catches and 46 yards. That's atrocious. And Ayuk wasn't any better, right? So this is that whole 49er offense just not taking off.
Nick Mullins.
Nick Mullins.
Yikes. But when Deebo then came back after his second little injury stint, he averaged 11 targets, 8.5 receptions, and 103 yards. That's 18 or 19 points a week, depending on how you judge it. That put him at wide receiver 10. And Ayuk was at wide receiver 40 because he was at the mercy of Deebo's production, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of this to say, Deebo is still worth drafting, right? And he can be a flex, but he has to be the riskiest flex available on draft boards right now. And if you do take him as your flex, get an insurance policy on him, because if he gets injured, you are then out on a flex, and then you are, hoping that someone comes out on waivers, or you are desperately trading to get a viable replacement for him. And the same then goes for Ayuk as well. Ayuk, again, higher ceiling, second-year player, but both of them will be behind George Kittle. So all ceilings are capped because of that. So, like I said, he's worth the flex, but please do yourself the favor. and grab an insurance policy because there's no guarantee with Deebo Samuel.
Thankfully, you can get Deebo Samuel's wide receiver 39 right now on ESPN.
Yep.
So thankfully, you don't have to spend. Let's see, where's Brandon Cooks at? Brandon Cooks is at 33, so they're kind of going in that same range. But like Tyler said, it's a pretty risky flex. You better hope you have 3 running backs and one of them can play your flex before you slot Deebo in there.
Yeah,
For sure.
I guess a couple insurance policies that I'm just looking at that you can take
Yep.
or that I would feel comfortable taking. Corey Davis, Cole Beasley, and
Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown. Those 3. I would say if you take Deebo, look for those 3 guys as your insurance policy because those guys will still put up some decent numbers that if Deebo falls off,
Or gets
you're
hurt.
not
Yeah.
right. You're not in such a bad spot.
For
There are thoughts on Deebo Samuel. That wraps up the podcast, fellas. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up? Before we head out?
No, I don't think so.
I'm glad that we're all safeties on the same team. That is a loaded secondary, ladies and gentlemen. Try your best. We will hit you. We will create turnovers. You can't beat us. You cannot beat us.
And we'll be the top 3 paid safeties in the NFL. So
100%. 100%. We're just 3 stooges being dudes, the fantasy football fellas. Deuces.
deuces.
Deuces.